Hi, my name by birth Alex William Smith, but I'm better known as the British bad boy of hypnosis, Jonathan Royle of magicalguru.com. The story and facts and evidence and legal documents relating to my two unsafe, fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood related convictions, which resulted after a fabricated story that appeared in the News of the World in 1998, led to me on the first day of trial changing my plea from not guilty to guilty, because I was advised that I could not question Mahmood's sources on the stand because his sources were covered by journalistic privilege, yet I was denied the journalistic privilege and lawful excuse of operating in the course of journalism, even though the judge accepted that it was my intention only to create a media prank to illustrate Mahmood's dishonesty. That's mentioned in the Manchester Evening News article you can see on circusofthemind.net. Despite all this, I ended up with two now unsafe convictions, because years on, obviously, having issued proceedings against News Group on the 30th of September 2022, Alex Smith versus NGN, they settled this, effectively silenced me, weaponised a Part 36 offer in late 2024, and in early 25 issued a private letter of apology, apologising for the actions of the journalist and people employed by the journalists in relation to invading my privacy. And, well, you can see what I claimed and what they settled at circusofthemind.net. ITV's The Hack starts on 24th of September at 9 p.m. It covers the phone hacking scandal and the Daniel Morgan murder inquiry. Both of these are inextricably linked. And in this video, I want to show you a couple of snippets from witness statements I've been given by the late Greg Miskiw, who was an executive at the News of the World. From Glenn Mulcaire, the man held up to hate, who they portrayed as the person who hacked Millie Dowler, the murdered schoolgirl's phone, but in truth, it had already happened several days before, and he was just used as a fall guy and a patsy, as fully explained in his book SHADOWMAN. And also Steve Grayson, who used to work with Mahmood. Look at the things they've confirmed, then go and check out my website, circusofthemind.net, and also the link to the Medium article above or below this video. Miscarriages of justice galore caused by phone hacking and non-disclosure by the police and CPS. Leveson 2 was going to investigate the corruption between the police, CPS, governments and the media. We need it more than ever. Glenn Mulcaire kindly gave me a sworn witness statement dated 30th of July 2021, which is still being used in my ongoing quest for justice to get my convictions overturned. Within this witness statement that I've been kindly given by Glenn Mulcaire, it clearly states the fact that Glenn was working in 97, 98 and onwards time period until he was taken on by the News of the World for a company called LRI. And at point 5 there, you see it says, I've been shown some payment records from the News of the World to LRI from this 97 to 99 period. As part of my work in assisting the claimants, I can confirm that it is extremely likely that it would have been me who carried out these jobs for the News of the World as part of doing the work on their account. In other words, it was highly likely Glenn Mulcaire who was tasked with hacking my phone in relation to the 1998 fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood story that led to my now unsafe convictions. Mr. Mulcaire clearly confirms, I quote, I did jobs for Mazher Mahmood, and for stories that he was running, I was tasked for these by Greg Miskiw, rather than Mahmood directly as an experienced investigator. There you go. Glenn also clearly states in his statement that he can confirm that to his certain knowledge, Mr. Mahmood knew who he was and the unlawful nature of some of his methods, including those I carried out for his stories. In other words, Mahmood knew that phone hacking was definitely illegal, who was doing it for him, and who was carrying it out on me in that 1998 Sting story. The late Greg Miskiw, who was an executive at the News of the World and, as confirmed by Glenn Mulcaire, acted as the intermediary sometimes between the fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood and Glenn Mulcaire to get Glenn to do phone hacking and other unlawful information gathering, kindly gave me a statement on the 4th of August 2021. And within that statement, some of which is quoted in a book called Downfall by Steve Grayson, published by Yellow Press, Greg goes into various details, including the fact that he was introduced to John Boyall in 1997 by Christine Hart, John Boyall being the person who effectively introduced phone hacking to the News of the World. This is confirmed in Greg's book. Also in Glenn Mulcaire's book SHADOWMAN, he makes mention that John Boyall is the person he worked for, the LRI, and then moved on to the News of the World afterwards. And that's also mentioned in various other books published by Yellow Press. Greg goes into great detail about Mazher Mahmood and his way of fabricating, creating and making stories occur, including the fact that Mazher Mahmood was a long-term user of phone hacking, unlawful information gathering and other unlawful and illegal techniques by way of employing John Boyall and Glenn Mulcaire via LRI, and then later on Glenn Mulcaire directly through Greg Miskiw at the News of the World. Steve Grayson, who was the former photographer who worked with the fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood for a number of years, kindly gave me a statement in May 2021 and has given permission to mention the contents of such publicly. Incidentally, the details of him having witnessed Mahmood drugging people is also mentioned in his book Downfall, about the fake Sheikh, by Steve Grayson, published by Yellow Press, within which my name Alex Smith appears also because he quotes elements from Greg Miskiw's witness statement to me. And as I say, that statement from Steve Grayson mentions the fact and goes into great detail about the fact that senior executives knew about Mahmood and his techniques, so they were turning a blind eye to his unlawful and illegal methods. He talks about his knowledge of Mahmood splicing and having videos and audios edited to make it look and sound like people had said or done things that were in truth completely out of context and not as portrayed. And of course, as I've always asserted, as have many other Mahmood victims, including Talisa Kontos-Stavlos, her friends, and numerous other people, as mentioned on my website, circusofthemind.net, Steve Grayson witnessed Mahmood drugging Sting victims' drinks, allegedly. Because obviously we've got to say that because it's not been fully proven in a court of law as yet. And of course he also mentions the fact that he's aware from his own personal experience that some of Mazzy's sources informing him of supposed pre-existing wrongdoing did not exist or were stooges. That is, associates of his playing the part of an informant. The key bit is that quite often the so-called source didn't exist, but because Mahmood did not have to reveal his sources, this meant when matters went to court, he never had to reveal who his sources were, thus making it impossible for victims such as myself to show the fact that there wasn't a source. So it was an odd catch-22 where we knew there was no source, and in my case I knew I was the source, as I explain at circusofthemind.net. So I knew that Mahmood did not have a proper source of any supposed pre-existing wrongdoing, thus meaning he had no public interest journalism defence, meaning that it was therefore not lawful for him to secretly video or film or to do any of the other things that he did. But I could never prove that because journalistic privilege meant he did not have to reveal his sources. which was non-existent. The simple fact is that ITV's The Hack, starting at 9 p.m. on Wednesday the 24th of September 2025, just scrapes the surface of the criminality and dishonesty in the Rupert Murdoch's media empire. We know, of course, that criminality wasn't just in the Murdoch papers. It's been shown that hacking took place at the Mirror Group newspapers, and we will find out in January 2026 whether a judge rules that there was or there wasn't hacking at the Daily Mail. But in terms of Murdoch's papers, it definitely did occur, and also they were involved in helping subvert the inquiries into the Daniel Morgan murder, as you'll see mentioned in The Hack, and also mentioned at some of the links you'll find on my website, circusthemind.net. But the bigger picture is that actual miscarriages of justice were caused, with people and myself and other fake shape victims ending up with criminal convictions for things we didn't do, or at least we didn't do in the manner it was portrayed in the newspaper articles, where things had been edited and spliced to make it look like we said or done things in a manner that we hadn't. And ultimately, the convictions were unsafe because they should never have gone to court, because Mahmood, the police and Crown Prosecution Service both knew as far back as 1994 they communicated with each other, the Met Police and CPS, stating after the collapse of court case that collapsed due to Mahmood's dishonesty, they stated to each other that he could not and should not ever be relied upon as a witness of truth ever again. And yet they continue to rely on his evidence, despite the fact that then in 1998 and 9 cases collapsed, and the other ones did after that. It wasn't until the collapse of the Talisa trial in 2014, maybe because it happened so publicly on the stand, with the judge exposing and discovering Mahmood's dishonesty and lies, that they actually stopped relying on his evidence and dropped all the further cases that were in the works, multiple cases, because they then decided they couldn't rely on Mahmood's evidence anymore. And yet the Met Police and CPS communicated with each other back in 1994, as mentioned at links on my website, circusthemind.net, that he could not and should not ever be relied upon as a witness of truth. But this was never disclosed to me or any other Mahmood victims by the police or CPS. They failed in their disclosure duties. Neither to this day have they ever disclosed that to me, or the collapse of the 98 case, the 99 case, the 2001 case that's mentioned on my website, or any of the other cases that have collapsed. The only one they've ever disclosed any information about is the Talisa trial. So they massively, to this day, have been failing in their disclosure duties. And had I been aware of that information, then in relation to the 1998 story that led to the 1999 two convictions I got for delivery of counterfeit coins, which I picked up from a place that Mahmood's associates told me where to get them from, and they gave me the money to make it happen up front, and I was socially engineered and coerced into it. But I also believed I had a legal excuse, the journalistic exemption, public interest journalism excuse, as explained at circusofthemind.net, to make it lawful for me to go and collect those coins in the course of journalism, because I was going to expose Mahmood's dishonesty. Little did I know, Lord, that he was drugging people, hacking phones, using unlawful information gathering, surveillance techniques and other ways of being 20 steps ahead of me, and that he knew what my intention was, and therefore he did everything in his power to make sure that I could never be taken seriously, that my life would be ruined, and that it would not expose his dishonesty, because if they'd started looking at him closely, maybe they would have also discovered about phone hacking back in 1998-99, rather than it taking much longer as it did. So yeah, The Hack's interesting, go and watch it, but there's far more at circusofthemind.net, and the links you'll find above or below this video, because phone hacking's also involved and was used in a manner that led to malicious prosecutions and miscarriages of justice, which is yet again another reason why we need Leveson Inquiry Part 2 or something similar.